Peace. Money was good, brother.
Peace. How are you? Freedom is good. Freedom is good. Good health. Good health. You know, peace and tranquility. That's what's good. Peace. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm all right. Listen to these loud Bengals that out here in Cincinnati, man. They went and put some work in.
Congratulations to the city, man, to the state of Ohio. They pulled that off. Ain't nobody think they was gonna do that. They pulled that off.
I don't think they thought they was gonna pull it off, but they got it.
Yeah, they did everything they had to do. They stayed poised. They was down 21-3. Second quarter. You know, they hold the Chiefs from scoring all the way to the end of the fourth quarter, and then they went into overtime and they pulled it off.
These fans is annoying to me, man. I'm done with them. Word up. Yeah. Hey, let me ask you something. Let's get right into it. I hope this background noise don't kill us with these people celebrating and stuff. But I wanted to get right into it for people that's familiar with the case now, and they know the overall of what happened. I want to get more detail as to what exactly happened during the case and some of the some of the things that just wasn't right about the case.
I'm adjusting. I'm out here in this freezing frigid cold, and I'm adjusting this face mask so that I got access to this phone. I can hear you and speaking to this mic clear. So just pardon me for a second. So now where we at? Where we at exactly? Excuse me. I apologize for that.
So the people that don't understand the case, right? Okay, some you got dudes.
I got you. Pardon me for cutting you off. I got you.
Okay,
got it. This is the thing about this, right? See, one of the things I always tell people, especially when I'm helping people with their cases in the law libraries, stuff like that, I tell them like this: when you making up something or you lying or whatever, you have to basically remember what you said so you don't cross yourself up and things like that. There, you want to make sure your story is synchronized and things like that. So when you telling the truth, you ain't got to remember all that. All you got to do is say exactly what happened, because the facts ain't going to change and the truth ain't going to change, no matter how somebody might try to flip and bounce or whatever. Everything is going to stay consistent. So basically, we're going to sum up exactly what happened so that all of you who's listening can have a detailed knowledge of exactly what happened. Okay. In the early morning minutes of October 9th, 1990, I left my house to go make a phone call at a nearby phone booth that was located in the rear of my building. I live in the Tilden Houses project in the Brownville section in Brooklyn. For those that don't understand how things was with respect to phones at that time, we used phone booths. Cell phones, as you know it now, was non-existent at that time. The few that was available was not a smartphone. You could basically say it was a dumb phone, because it wasn't about no cameras, taking pictures, or none of that. So when I was on my way back from making a phone call, which is what I routinely did. The reason why I routinely did that, because I was involved in a relationship with a young lady, and she worked from 4 to 12 at night. So what we did have and what we used to communicate with regularly at that time was what we call beepers, which is probably non-existent now. But when she would get home from work, she would beep me, put a code in, and I would know, okay, she's home, and I would call. So on my way back from making this phone call, okay, I lived in 340 Dumont Avenue at the time. It was a shooting that took place between two groups of people inside of the lobby of 330 Dumont Avenue, which is the building that was adjacent to my building. And when I heard the shots, I was attempting to make it inside my building, but the shooting progressed into the front of 330. Now, once they was outside and I hear shooting outside, I didn't want to get caught in the crossfire, so I attempted to reverse and go so I could try to enter the rear of my building. And at that time, officers was immediately on the scene, and they stopped me, made me get on my knees and come to them. Okay, so it was some people in apartment 1F330 Dumont Avenue. I later found out that some guys entered the building, shot through the door. Apparently, the guys that was inside of the apartment returned fire. and they all dispersed. None of them guys got caught. It was some people that was inside of the apartment that said, they made statements saying that they were there legally watching a football game, and then some shooting started. They hit the deck basically until the police came, and that's when they opened the door and they got placed under arrest as well. So the police made up a story. The 3 uniformed police that was the first ones that responded to the scene said that I actually wasn't where they arrested me at. They said I was inside of the apartment in the first floor window shooting towards the front of 330 Dumont Avenue, which was facing away from them. And according to their testimony, they're saying that they approached the rear of 330 Dumont Avenue, and I was hanging out of a window, firing towards the front, not knowing that they were there. Then they said that they announced themselves, said it's police. I turned around and shot 4 or 5 shots in their direction. Now, they claim I had a 38 revolver. Okay? 3 police, lockstep, side by side. They said I'm firing away from them towards 330 Dumont Avenue front entrance. They didn't claim how many times I shot towards the front of the building, but they claimed that all of them, in particular, said I shot in their direction 4 or 5 times. At least 2 of the officers testified that they fired back at the window. Then they said I jumped out of that same window and they arrested me. Now,
let me ask you something. Let me ask you for something for clarity, right?
We need to get this out. Yes.
Was this
let's get it out so everybody could at least understand exactly what happened. But go ahead, ask your question.
What the building that you was going into, like trying to take cover in, was that the same building? Because I forgot the number. Was it the same building?
No. My apartment building is adjacent to that.
Oh, so across
my apartment building is 340 Dumont Avenue. The building that this incident happened in is 330 Dumont Avenue. So I was not even on that side of the walkway. I was separate and aside from that. And when I got arrested, I just thought that the police was just trying to gather everybody that was there just during the investigation, trying to find out whether or not somebody had something to do with it or not. I had no idea that they was going to take that to that further extent and just lie and say that somebody was actually shooting at them. But getting back to my narrative now, everybody inside of that apartment that was arrested told them that I was not in that apartment. Some of them, I know him, I seen him around the neighborhood, but we don't know him. He definitely wasn't inside the apartment when the shooting took place or any time. Now, later on, one of the officers actually said that I had a shotgun when they first approached, shooting the shotgun. The other 2 of the officers said they never heard or seen no shotgun. This is how ridiculous the story is. The 2 said when they noticed I had a 38 revolver. Now, what's important and what I would like to highlight at this point is that 38 revolver contains 6 shots. If somebody is shooting a gun away, not knowing that they're even there, how many times were you actually shooting? Because if you were shooting 2, 3, 4 times before you even knew these guys was there, and you turned around, it would be impossible for you to shoot 4 or 5 times in their direction. Then, the ridiculous story that it was a shotgun involved in that. A shotgun, as everybody knows, is a pump-action shotgun. It discharged shells, which is large shells. None of that was ever found. None of that was present at the scene. The only physical evidence that was present at that scene was the actual shooting that occurred inside of the lobby and in front of the building. So even the officers that said they returned fire at the window, it was no broken glass, there was no bullet markings, no projectile, no lead projectile, none of that. There was nothing in the area where they claimed to be. And that is just a simple fact because it never happened. But moving past their ridiculous claim, I hired an attorney at the time I was arrested. An attorney in turn hired an investigator to go to the scene. the investigators secured eyewitnesses' testimony, and everybody said that man had nothing to do with that. All of the 911 tapes that was called in emergency that it was a shooting in the area. Some people, when the officers canvassed the area, even identified certain people that was allegedly involved in the shooting. Nothing about anybody shooting out the window and the police being involved in the gunfight with anybody. So I'm thinking, okay, going to court, once all of this come out, I'm going to be found not guilty, and that's the end of that. But unfortunately, during the whole legal process, between my attorney not presenting available witnesses and the court doing everything in their power to prevent witness from testimony, the jury never got a chance to hear any of these exonerating statements. One example I want to give you is this. I had a hearing based on a motion, which is called a severance motion. The severance motion was filed so that the guys that was arrested in that apartment would not be at the same trial with me, so that they could come to my trial and say that, yes, they were in the apartment and these reasons why they were in there and I wasn't there. So when my lawyer filed this motion, the judge heard the motion at a time where my lawyer was on trial in a whole nother county and wasn't present. And so the judge told me at the time that because my lawyer wasn't there, they was going to be inconvenienced and not mine and not his, and denied the motion. And by the court denying that motion, that denied me an opportunity to present these guys that was caught inside of that apartment testifying on my behalf. In addition to that, there was somebody that gave a statement that actually lived in that apartment and was testifying who was in there and said I wasn't there. The lawyer did not call her, put her on the stand. It was another female that I had no idea who she was at the time, but she some type of way linked up with that investigator when the investigator was canvassing that area, and told the investigator that she seen me on the telephone because she actually wanted to use the phone. When I got off the phone, she seen me walking down the walkway, heard the shot, seen the police leave out of a building, immediately respond to that, make me get down on my knees and arrest me. She was not called. So these are some of the things that happened and led to my wrongful prosecution and wrongful conviction. It was also a person that gave a statement, a detailed statement, and said they seen what happened. They actually lived in my building, and I had a DD-5, which is a police report, taking statements from eyewitnesses. And this person seen a whole lot, and names and all that, said absolutely nothing about nobody shooting out the window or the police being involved in exchange of gunfire with anybody. And they didn't use this person as a witness because that person obviously was not going to say that what they were saying, which was I attempted to murder 3 police officers. But
they denied that right before your trial? Right before your trial is
right before, exactly. So outside of my presence, yes, the answer to your question is yes. Right before my trial started, while I was in the back in a bullpen outside of my presence, in my transcript, see, everything that I am saying, I want to be very, very clear about this. All of this is written in stone. Everything that I am saying, I have in the police statements, the police memo book, the grand jury testimony to get me indicted, their trial testimony, statements from all of these witnesses. I have the motion that my lawyers filed. I have the court date where the judge is telling me she's going to meet her convenience and not mine, and I'm ultimately denied the motion. She went as far as when I started trial, my judge said, Your Honor, I have a motion before you for a separate trial. The judge said, we addressed that back on April 22nd. That was in 1991. And my lawyer was like, I don't know what you're talking about because I wasn't here. The judge said on the record, you was here. Because if you was not here, I would not have denied that motion. And after lengthy argument, and when my lawyer was explaining, Your Honor, that never happened while I was here. The judge asked the clerk to verify the record, and the clerk went back and said, Your Honor, he wasn't here. And after all of that argument, she was asking my co-defendant, what are you going to do? Are you planning on testifying on his behalf? My co-defendant clearly stated, yes, I am. My co-defendant lawyer said, I don't advise him to testify on his behalf. And the reason why he didn't want him testifying because he didn't want them saying, oh, you was in that apartment and wound up tripping him up during cross-examination or whatever and incriminate himself. But even in the light of all of that, he said, I'm testifying anyway. And the judge still denied me my right to present him.
Was he charged with the same thing you was charged with?
I can't hear you.
Was he charged with the same thing you was charged with?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They were charged with possession of weapons, and that was that. They wasn't charged with. I'm the only single person that was charged with attempting to murder 3 police officers. So now, ridiculously, right? First of all, because of the way my lawyer handled the case, the first thing I did, his name is George Scheinberg. That was my trial attorney. The first thing I did was file a lawsuit against him. And the reason why I filed the lawsuit against him, because when he filed that same motion that I spoke about, which was for me to have a separate trial, he was saying that he was in possession of a videotape statement that was made by this young guy who was arrested inside of that apartment. And he said that that video statement exonerated me. He said that in writing in his written motion. And he also said that several times in open court. I have all of those statements, and I have that videotape. That video actually incriminated me because the police beat this guy up and made him say what they wanted him to say. And immediately after being arrested, he said, yo, listen, I made this statement, and this is what the police made me to say. He claimed they burnt him with cigarettes and all that. I believe everything he said because I'm telling you straight up and down, the police, everybody that they had in custody, they beat us for hours until they had a statement from this guy. So it was no doubt in my mind that that's what took place. But anyway, anybody that was scrutinized that statement could see that there was obvious lies just by the way this guy was trying to leave himself out of what was going on in there and implicate other people. But at the end of the day, he did tell the truth and said that I wasn't in there. Now, when I filed the lawsuit, I retained documents for all of these witnesses in my lawyer files, all of the statements that was made and subpoenas that was issued, and then I filed a motion under New York State Criminal Procedure Law 440 under ineffective assistance of trial counsel. And at the time, the district attorney answered my motion and said that she talked to the lawyer. And the lawyer told him in a phone conversation that he don't remember why he did not put these witnesses on the stand. And then in a subsequent conversation, he said he don't know why he didn't put them on the stand, but if they would have been available and would have had information favorable to me, he would have put them on the stand. So once I seen that, I just knew I was walking out the door because I had all of the information showing that he was lying or even the district attorney was lying. So in a reply to the district attorney's opposition to my motion, I put a list of documents contained in this lawyer's file, which showed that he had statements and subpoenas and interviews and everything from these witnesses. And the subpoenas was to show that they were available because they were signed and dated by him, issued by the judge that held my trial, and the witnesses, and dated while I was on trial. So at the worst case scenario, I'm thinking that they would grant a hearing, which in New York they call an evidentiary hearing, so that we could marshal all of this evidence and see what actually happened. The judge had the nerve to say that I was second-guessing trial counsel's strategy and dismiss my motion without holding a hearing or anything. Then part of the rulings from the Appellate Division, which is available, People versus Terence Rice, they actually said that as far as the severance and why the co-defendant testified, that the judge denied my motion on the basis of paper. Nobody ever seen these papers because they don't exist. They denied it on the basis of papers, and even after that, they try to act like the judge was courteous and reconsidered the motion on the eve of trial, which was really my lawyer arguing, saying you should have never denied that motion and you should grant the severance in the presence of the witness right now while they're here saying they're willing to testify. And they said after the co-defendant did not express a desire to testify, they properly denied the motion. So I was denied the constitutional right on the appellate level based on misinformation. And like I said, anybody that would look further into this, that examine this, you could look at the transcripts and see clearly that the judge acknowledged that this guy was willing to testify against the advice of his lawyer. And then look at the appellate division's decision, which is public knowledge as well. You can pull that up, and it's a misrepresentation of what happened. And as a result of all of this, I'm still incarcerated. You know, since then, I have written the police personally, you know, and I sent copies of those to the court. The court filed to acknowledge that, especially on the federal level. You see the federal docket, you would see letters from Terence Rice to the police officers that they had their name. My family, particularly my wife, knocked on their door, went to the precinct court, talked to these guys. You know, it's just been an ongoing struggle since then.
What was the reaction
in a nutshell? Excuse me?
What was the reaction of the officers when your wife knocked on the door?
One of the officers, I think that was Joseph Guerrero. He was like, who was Terence Rice? As if he had no idea who I was. Another officer named Johnson Colvin, when she knocked on his door, he was not there, but his father, who was Johnson Colvin Sr., he was there. And when she explained the nature of her business, he was like, oh, you're talking about the time when the door got shot up, which is telling, because he didn't say, oh, the time when my son almost got murdered, or somebody attempted to murder my son. He's talking about the door that got shot up, which is what really happened. You see, so this is the type of response. This one name is Cavano. Investigator seen him. He said, I don't remember. I will have to check with my notes. But could you please not tell him where I live at, and that you interview me at the 100, I think it's 111th precinct in Queens. But the investigator was like, I got this address from Terence Rice where I got the case. Like, so it's really not a secret, but it's really ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. I had a meeting with the district attorney's office 29 years after I was incarcerated, which was on October 2nd, 2019. We had a very lengthy meeting. I personally thought I still wouldn't be in prison after that meeting. And that was on a Thursday. I explained to the assistant district attorney at that time how I was working, various jobs. I had just taken the sanitation test and passed the test and was waiting for that and got arrested for this. And so immediately after, we went through all of the evidence. I mean, of course, we don't have time now to go through 29 years worth of incidents and also a 3-hour meeting on top of that. But what was interesting and what I want to point out is after we went through all of that, and I said to myself, I said, what do you think is important? 2 groups of guys shooting at each other, or somebody trying to murder 3 uniformed New York City police officers? And she was like, obviously the more serious crime is the police. I said, so why do you think the crime scene unit has all the physical evidence to demonstrate that a shooting took place between these 2 groups of guys in this building, in the apartment in front of the building, but there's not one single shred of physical evidence to demonstrate that it was an exchange of gunfire between officers and somebody in the window? And I also said that if you took 1,000,000 times and recreated this crime, and somebody shot at officers from a window 4 or 5 times, and they shot back, it's going to be physical evidence present demonstrating that something actually happened. And so the next day after this meeting, she called the lawyer and said, I want Terence to give me all the information that he has to show that he was living the life he said he was living. No problem. I sent all of my pay stubs from the various jobs I had, including the security job that was not far from where I was arrested at. And I sent all of the information relative to the test I took for the sanitation. I gave them the exam number, the test, everything. They got off for that. So I guess they was like, damn. Gave them the information of the female who I was in a relationship with, her job, where she worked at. She gave an affidavit explaining that this was our lifestyle. This is what we did every day. It wasn't like it was something that just popped up and he happened to do this night. This is what we did. So the next thing they did was act. They said they couldn't believe my story, right? Because they had pictures from that night. And if I would have been made to get on my knees, it would have been dirt from between my knees and my ankle, my foot, showing that I was made to crawl from where I was at to the police. So that's why they couldn't believe. I could not believe that they said that. So I called my wife and said, look, do you have my transcript readily available? She said, absolutely. I said, go to Officer Mackey's statement. So she went to Officer Mackey's statement. Sure enough, what happened? I see him. I made him get on his knees and walk to me. I said, screenshot that, send that to the lawyer, send it to the district attorney. We heard nothing else about that. And they just played these little games.
Outright didn't respond.
Now, again, hold on. What you said? What did you say?
They outright they just ain't respond back.
Man, if you're trying to disprove something, and every time you're trying to disprove something, you being met with documentary evidence that's undisputed, what are you going to do? It's either you're going to do the right thing
or get lost.
Or you're not. And because I'm on this phone with you, obviously, they're not.
Right.
But what I'm saying to you again is that all of this is documented. Now, I'm not making nothing up. And anybody would want to see anything that I'm saying, a statement that was made, the police officer's memo book, I have all of that. All of that. What I'm in the process of doing now, I actually have some amateur video footage of the area. And my wife narrated, showing the window this. But what we are in the process of doing now is getting something done a little more high quality so we can show our viewers exactly what I'm in here for and what the police said and, just demonstrate reenact the whole crime scene.
Yeah, it seemed like it was almost like nitpicking. Okay, well, let's see if you really.
No, after that meeting, that ain't seemed like that. That definitely was like nitpicking. But the sad thing is, I think that it's universally accepted that no matter what side of the fence you may be on,
you have 1 minute left.
What am I still doing in prison all of the time?
Say that again.
Now we already know.
Say it again.
I said, no matter what side of the fence you may be on, what am I still doing in prison all of this time? We just flipped the 30-second calendar. I got more time than Charles Manson. It was a case, you know about it, Happy Land Social Club. 86 people died. How about triple the time this guy got? For that. David Berkowitz had the whole city under siege in the 70s, murdering people in several counties. How about triple the time he got? It's ridiculous. You can look up some of the most notorious crime serial killers and all that. How about more time than them? Nobody suffered a scratch.
Money. We're gonna the next interview. We're gonna get everything that you got, and we're gonna present
Thank
it to
you for
people.
using Securus. Goodbye.
We're gonna present everything that Money got moving forward. We're gonna paint this picture, and we're gonna paint this picture, man.